Sam Darley here, and tonight, wow, do I have a big one for you. Demarcus Cousins traded from the Sacramento Kings to the New Orleans Pelicans, a team I didn't see ever making a shot or making a push for Demarcus in the first place. Now has two legitimate front court superstars. The question is, can they coexist? And in Alvin Gentry's offense, which is very much almost similar to Mike D'Antoni's, I think they could coexist, Anthony and Cousins. But, I guess it's the proof is in the pudding. I don't know if they're going to... I'll have to double check whether or not Cousins is playing tonight, but they're taking on the Rockets, who I thought, the Rockets could have given the Kings a better deal than what New Orleans offered. But hey, I don't know what Sacramento's thinking. Heck, I don't think anybody knows what Sacramento is thinking. They just traded a franchise player for pretty much a pack of Snickers and a box of Cheerios or something. They gave up nothing. They gave absolutely nothing, and the trade doesn't make any team better, realistically. The Pelicans don't have a backcourt, and you can't rely on Anthony Davis and Demarcus Cousins playing 48 minutes a night. You can with Cousins, but you talk about foul trouble and health, and they have no bench. They have no draft picks this year, and then they've lost a couple of first rounders and a second rounder. So, where does that leave the two teams? I think the Pelicans now have two foundational pieces for the future. If not for right now. They're obviously still in the hunt, technically, for the 8th and final spot, and so is Sacramento, which makes this trade a head-scratcher. This feels like the Kings are essentially saying, we're not going to contend, heck, we're not even going to compete, so let's just go ahead and blow it all up. There's a lot of things the Kings have done wrong. This is certainly one of them. They're not a well-run organization since the early days of Rick Edelman and Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, and Jason Williams, and the 2002 conference finals. To me, the Kings have been a dysfunctional organization, and I'm glad that Boogie is now out of them. Excuse me, but I don't think that I don't the immediate impact won't be seen for the rest of this year, because Davis and Cousins are going to build up chemistry. And I know in 2018, DeMarcus Cousins at the end of the 2018 season, Cousins can become a free agent. He can opt out. He's not a free agent after this year. I checked ESPN for all the contract details on people, and DeMarcus Cousins has a player option for next year. And while we're on the subject of trades, I got a shocking trade idea. Since Paul George of the Indiana Pacers has come out and said he's not committing long term to the Indiana Pacers, Who should make what would the asking price be for a Paul George, seeing what the Kings gave up for Cousins? Now, a lot of teams might think, well, sure, maybe other teams are thinking, well, maybe another team is as gullible as the Kings are. I doubt it. I'm just shocked. They could have gotten Montrezl Harrell and a couple of draft picks from Houston. If that's all they were looking for is draft picks, they could have gotten at least a solid young role player in Montrezl, or they could have even gotten Clint Capella from Houston and took all Houston's bigs. But DeMarcus Cousins is a huge upgrade for anybody. He's probably the best big man in the league. I know I've got him on my 2K team. I don't know about you. But if you need a big man, that's the guy to get. Excuse me. So, the future, like I said, I don't think Sacramento is really puzzling to me because I don't think they've got a future. I don't know what their future is for them, and realistically, they're having a fire sale. Essentially, they've put Rudy Gay and Aaron Aflalo on the block. I think the teams like Houston, Oklahoma City, and maybe Memphis should be active at the deadline simply because those are teams that are cusp contenders, but they're not contenders. Memphis could make a serious run in the playoffs, but if they're going to be, if any of the teams I just mentioned, Memphis, Houston, or Oklahoma City, are going to have any shot of knocking off the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs, they're going to need to upgrade at the deadline. And I think for Houston, it starts in the middle with a big man. Like maybe if the Clippers feel like they can't contend, because realistically their time is running out. Chris Paul's getting old. He's getting hurt more often now, and so is Blake Griffin. Although Griffin's not old, he's still young, but he's still suffering from some pretty severe injuries. Yeah, maybe you could ship off DeAndre Jordan and upgrade at the small forward position. And like I said, with Paul George, he's not committed long term to the Pacers, so maybe he becomes available. And I think Oklahoma City should definitely be interested since they lost Kevin Durant. They're going to need another stud to play with Russell Westbrook. I think the biggest question is, does anybody want to play with Westbrook? He has a hero tendency. It's just, and honestly, that's what I feel like. What pushed Kevin Durant out the door in Oklahoma City? The 3-1 lead against the Golden State Warriors in the conference finals, and then you join the Golden State Warriors. That's still a weak move, but I'm not too, I know a lot of people like Westbrook. I like Russell's attitude, but at the same time, you cannot. You gotta make the best player has to make others around him better. That's what makes him great. It's what makes LeBron great. It's what makes James Harden. Now, James Harden has learned to take a step back and try and get his teammates more involved and get his teammate and make his teammates better. He's become a better leader. He's healthier than he was last year. And people forget, last year James Harden entered training camp overweight, out of shape, and with an ankle injury. So, to me, Russell Westbrook has to essentially take a step back this offseason and go, okay, I need to pull a James Harden. I can go 110 miles an hour and get triple doubles whenever I want, or I can make others around me better and make myself more appealing to free agents, because honestly, I don't see why Oklahoma City wouldn't be an appealing destination with Westbrook there, but I guess people don't want to play with Russell because he can be Mr. Hero Ball, Mr. I'm going to do it all. But again, I like his attitude. I did think it was pretty funny when he caught an alley-oop from Kevin Durant. Those two being button heads, and I think they still are. I just think that was all for show in the All-Star game. So, but Demarcus Cousins being traded, I'm still in shock. I'm still trying to figure out why Sacramento took that deal. But maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, we'll look back on this and go, well, maybe the Kings knew what they were doing. I highly doubt that, but everybody, this is a different sport, but I'll reference the Herschel Walker trade from the Vikings to the Cowboys. Everybody thought the Cowboys were insane, and they ended up cutting the guys they got in return and got all those draft picks and turned those draft picks into Emmitt Smith and Haley and other guys that ended up helping them winning 3-4 more championships, and they became one of the more dominant teams in the 90s, They became one of the more dominant teams in the NFL. So maybe, and I'm not saying Sacramento's going to become a dominant team in the NBA, but you just don't know what the thinking is. Yeah, we're not behind closed doors. I know Boogie's had some attitude issues. But maybe getting out of Sacramento was good for him, and I think it was good for both parties really, because Sacramento was not going anywhere. They had no real clear cut plan to be a contender, and now with a rebuild, and maybe they can get a couple picks, get lucky in the draft, and maybe they end up with two foundational pieces like Oklahoma City did, and that's why I think Philadelphia is tanking, because they've got Joel Embiid, they've got Ben Simmons, and they're still not very good. And the biggest reason is they're trying to do what Oklahoma City did. They're trying to get 3 big time players, megastars. But you got to remember, teams have to remember, you have to develop players. You can't just draft guys and go, oh, we're going to dominate, yada yada yada. You got to draft and develop, and that's what Oklahoma City was able to do with Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. And that's the thing, is everybody's trying to. All these teams that are tanking, like Sacramento and Philly, they're all trying to imitate the Thunder. They're trying to get 3 stars from the draft and then build around 3 building block players. The reality is, there's not many of those around in the NBA draft. So, but I do think the Sixers have a good future. I think if Embiid is healthy, and you got Simmons healthy, I think that's a nice little 1-2 young combination right there. They gotta make a decision on Okafor and Nerlens Noel. You can't have 5 or 6 big men and not know what to do with them. Maybe they could get a wing player, but again, it's really all up to the process. Excuse me, essentially. And what is Sam Hinkie's thoughts are regarding Philly? I don't think Philly will be active at the trade deadline. I really don't. I don't even expect the Los Angeles Lakers to be active either. But then again, look at the Western Conference. You got Golden State's number 1, and you got to ask yourself, is going up against the Warriors in the first round worth it? Well, of course it is, especially if you're the Lakers. There's a team with a lesser 500 record right now hosting the 8th spot and going to Golden State. I think Denver's in the mix. Denver could be problematic though for the Golden State Warriors, I think, because they've played Curry very tough. Curry struggled pretty mightily at Denver, and being in the altitude, that can be a very tough environment to win a playoff game. I know they won't beat them. They won't beat the Warriors, but Denver could give Golden State a bit of a fight. But again, it depends on what. They've made Wilson Chandler available for trade, so to me, I think the Demarcus Cousins deal. It could have a ripple effect on the trade deadline, which is Thursday, by the way. Excuse me. I do apologize for my constant coughing. But yes, I think it will have some impact. Not like it won't put the Pelicans over the top, and it won't put the Kings anywhere near an 8th spot. But at the end of the day, we're talking about, when you look at one trade, you look at the asking price, and that's general. That's where the bar is usually set. And in this case, the bar is set really, really low. So it's really about asking price. What do these teams want in return in these trade packages? Because I think Sacramento, as much as they are rebuilding, they could have gotten a nicer deal from the Cousins trade, but opted for the latter. They opted for a terrible, terrible package, and now they're probably even worse shape than they were at the beginning of the season. Houston Rockets will take on the New Orleans Pelicans tonight, and it'll be interesting to see if Demarcus Cousins suits up tonight. I highly doubt it. All-Star Game MVP, Anthony Davis, man, that guy's a load. Scored 52 points last night. He was sensational. And the Rockets will begin the last half of their schedule against New Orleans. They too have got some deadline deals to think about. And maybe, I know Daryl Morey's probably got the clock spinning in his head thinking, maybe I can get Paul George. So I guess we'll see what the asking price is and we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening.